Hello, YouTube. Welcome back to the chilly Midwest. Whoop, wrong gear. And that's the right gear. All right, here we go. Time to rock and roll. So, what am I up to today? I'm headed back home towards Chicago now, officially. Just got reloaded in the Kansas City area. So this will be a milk run, be able to deliver this load in the morning and then get this truck into the shop for some maintenance because I have hit the big 500,000 as I whiff my turn here, thinking I needed to go one way and then to go actually another way. So whoopsie doodle, here we go. All right, let's try this again. Here we go. All right. No one's dead, everything is fine. Let's keep on rolling. Anyway, so truck hit 500,000 miles yesterday, as a matter of fact, while I was making my audition tape, so to speak, for Ice Road Truckers through central Missouri. That was all kinds of fun. But that's not what I'm here to talk about. I wanted to take a moment and talk a bit about the Canadian protests. The trucking protests in Canada, and how I hope everyone who is participating is safe and doing so politely in a way that only Canadians can, while also making sure they get their point across and that they do not cave in to fear-mongering or pressure from their government officials until they get their needs for open borders and reduced restrictions met, because that is, I believe, now a crucial fact of life at all governments at the local, state, and national level, whether you call it national level or federal level or whatever level it is. We have hit that point now where the restrictions need to be lifted because COVID has reached essentially an endemic stage. Denver has come out and said that Omicron has run out of fuel because they are seeing their case counts, their hospitalizations, and their fatalities dropping to the point where Denver has come out and said, that's it, no more restrictions, no more lockdowns, no more masking is required. But we're not going to sit here and say that everyone has to unmask. We're still going to allow schools to require masks for the time being, and we're going to permit businesses to make the decision to require masks if they so desire. But we are not going to require at the government level masking, and this guy is in my way. Let's see if I can sneak past him here, because he has picked a horrible spot to stop. I think maybe broken down on an off-ramp, which is super annoying, but I can get past, so we're okay. Did I clear him? I did. All right, home free, good times. Anyway, so where was I? Yes, Denver. No more masking at the government level. England is basically coming out and saying the same thing. You know, there's no longer any point for us to require masks or mandates. I'm not 100% certain of what their actual official position is. I didn't look it up before I started talking, so take what I said with a grain of salt and check for yourself. But the impression that I'm getting is that the United Kingdom is removing its mask mandates and restrictions in general. And I do believe that since the dominoes in that regard are starting to fall, it's only a matter of time before they get to fall en masse, and we start to see things get back to what they should be, what they need to be, and we can all kind of, quote unquote, get back to our lives, which would be supremely wonderful, and hopefully that happens for all of us very soon. But in Canada, like Australia, they still have some very significant restrictions, and for those of you not aware, the major beef that the Freedom Convoy in Ottawa and then the blockade at the Alberta, USA crossing is that they are protesting against the vaccine mandate requirement to do cross-border business between the United States and Canada. That's part of it. The issue is much deeper than that, much more complicated, but I want to focus on just the vaccination mandate because that is one of the hearts of the issue, at least as far as I'm given to understand. As a result, 500 or more trucks, I think probably over 1,000 trucks now have been in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, there we go, for several days now, peacefully occupying the city, but not peacefully depending on what memes you listen to or what Twitter feeds you're looking at. And in Alberta, at least 30 trucks are blockading the U.S.-Canada border on the Canada side, preventing the safe crossing of any trucks or vehicles in general, as far as I'm aware. As a result of that, the Canadian government at the local or the provincial level has reached out to tow companies to try to see who would be willing to send trucks on their behalf to then remove the blockading vehicles from the border crossing and tow them away. And essentially, the response they got was a flat negative. The trucking company said the tow company said we are not going to involve ourselves in this situation, because our business and our community relations depend on us not having the wrong relationship with our communities and the people we do business with, and it would be detrimental to us to do this, so we're staying out of it. We're not going to tow any trucks. Or some companies came out and said, no, our trucks are going to be there, but in support of the protest. We're not going to tow anyone out. We're there to support, and any truckers who break down, we're going to help them get fixed up, but we're not going to tow any trucks out. We're there to support the protest. I'm sure the same situation is playing out in Ottawa as well, but that's as far as I know. But anyway, the Canadian government is at some level allegedly, a report came out or a rumor leaked or whatever else. I have no idea if this has been substantiated by a factual statement or a factual piece of evidence in any capacity, but allegedly the Canadian government is considering a military response to force I think the Alberta protest to disband by sending troops in essentially to break up the protests and make sure everyone leaves and the border can reopen. They may also be considering the same thing for the Ottawa protest. I don't know, but again, this is allegedly what I've heard. So now the political consequences of that would be absolutely catastrophic, because an armed response to a peaceful protest, as far as I'm aware, especially if you're dealing with people who are literally the lifeblood of your nation, anywhere from the local to the transnational level and also international level, if you take a harsh enough stance against those people, now you alienate an entire workforce, and this is logistics, transporting everything from food to waste. That's a problem. So the Canadian government has to be very careful about how it proceeds, because they run a very serious risk of making a peaceful but not happy situation very poor very quickly. Now, on the U.S. side of things, I heard yesterday, and again, I have no idea if this is true or not. I didn't follow up to see if it was a factual bit of reporting or factual news, but allegedly there was a Facebook group set up in the U.S. that garnered 137,000 members, and the goal of that group was to do a copycat protest in the U.S. and drive to Washington, D.C. in order to protest vaccine mandates and lockdowns and all this stuff related to COVID, and force government change by literally driving to the doorstep of the U.S. government and saying we want change. That Facebook group allegedly has been deleted or whatever by Facebook. So Facebook is not going to allow its platform to be used to help set up another protest, especially in the U.S. Now, on the one hand, that's a very poor move by Facebook, because it illustrates very clearly what their position is. But on the other hand, since Facebook is a private corporate entity for now, they do have the right to determine what content they permit on their platform, what content they seek not to have. We've always seen that they are biased in favor of particular thought processes and positions, whether it's political, personal, and whatever else, and they have come out against content that is antithetical to or in opposition to what the content that they normally would approve. Now, this protest group, obviously, if this is true, of course, I don't know if it is or not, they have illustrated their position against this copycat protest. Now, in the U.S., the situation is nowhere near as dire, so to speak, as it has been in Canada, as it has been in Australia, and a few other nations around the world. But at the same time, in some areas of the U.S., it's been almost as bad. So it kind of runs the gamut here in the U.S., depending on where you're at, what region of the states you're in, what state you're in, and what part of that state you're in even as well. Now, I live in Illinois. Most of Illinois no longer cares about masking and vaccination requirements and all that jazz, but Chicago still very much does. Now, there is, depending on what your faith in the science is, there are legitimate concerns about public health in the city of Chicago, because you've got 6 million people in, a few hundred square miles. That's a major collection of people that if there was a sudden disease outbreak, that's a really major problem for an already overstressed, understaffed, and probably very badly under-equipped healthcare system in the city of Chicago. But as far as the rest of the state, they don't care. I mean, Wisconsin is mostly the same way. Parts of Michigan, same way. Indiana, a lot of the same way. They just don't care. People are just done with COVID restrictions. They are done with mask mandates. They are done overwhelmingly with a lot of the crap we've had to put up with for the last 2 years. However, because of the fact that we have 48 different governments and 48 different distinct populations of people, the responses to how things have been happening in the U.S. have lacked an overall concerted, focused direction, because some states are almost all the way open, other states are about to reopen, and only a handful of states really have significant restrictions still in place on a statewide level. Or at least, shall I say, they're being still adhered to on a statewide level. I haven't been to California in 2.5 years. I have no idea what California is doing on a personal level. I've been to New York City. I've been to New York State. I've been to New Jersey. I've been to Delaware and Maryland and Virginia and West Virginia. And most of the southern states I've been in and out of those. For the most part, over the last year, they have been just casually winding down their adherence to the mandates whenever they possibly could on a personal level. Now, on a professional level and on a government level, those are different stories, because, again, private companies and entities do have the right and position to determine for themselves, we want masking because we believe it to be best for our employees, and the people we deal with, we want to see them masked as well. Or in other cases, we want to see proof of vaccination as well as your mask to make sure that, there's no risk of us, or whatever the case, getting sick or whatever. So the private entities still have the ability to require masking for the time being. I believe before long that's going to just start to vanish, because even places that do have mask mandates or signage, it's like you walk in, no one's wearing a mask. Okay, well, why should I? Now, when it comes to the vaccines, I did get a vaccination last June. I got a booster just a couple of weeks ago because I believe it's in my best interest to do so. I've got a concert coming up in a couple of weeks in Chicago, and the facility I'm going to attend the concert at has said we require both a mask and proof of valid vaccination and or booster status in order for you to be able to come into our facility, our venue, and, enjoy this concert. Now, I didn't know that before I got my booster, but now that I have my booster, it's like, okay, I get to go to my concert. I don't have to now try to resell my tickets because I don't want to get a booster. I get to go to my concert, which is fantastic, because I've been waiting for this concert for, a while now. It was supposed to happen in November, but because the band and the venues got together and said, look, we got too many different respect your position. If you believe not being vaccinated or boosted is in your personal best interests or for your health or just where you believe things are at with the vaccines and with COVID itself, that is your choice. I respect your position. You make your choices and you make the best choice you possibly can as you feel for yourself, your personal health, your family, your business. I make my choices for my personal health, my business interests, my family needs. So we're just going to have to agree to disagree if you're not pro-vaccine, or if you're anti-vax, we're going to have to agree to disagree because I have a different position. I don't distrust the vaccines. I don't 100% trust them, but I have yet to have COVID in any capacity. I would never have COVID. Oh, there's a yellow light. So, and I felt that it was in my best interest to go ahead and vaccinate and then boost because it was going to fit what I wanted to do, whether I knew it at the time or not in the case of the concert. So, we're all going to make choices the way we feel are best for ourselves. But I know I've been exposed to COVID at least once, probably 3 or 4 times at least over the past 2 years since the pandemic officially started in March 2020 when we had our first lockdowns. It's now February 2022 and we're all sick of it. And I held out on getting a vaccine until, number one, I could get the one-shot Johnson & Johnson, and also, number two, I was kind of waiting to see if there was going to be any kind of issues or problems with the vaccines that would cause them to be pulled or canceled or to stop issuing them. And yeah, there was an issue with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, and as a result of that, that continuing issue, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine and booster, as far as I'm aware, is very difficult to get. Only Pfizer and Moderna are available by and large, depending on where you go. Like for Walgreens or CVS, they're only really, at least in my area, my home area, they're only really carrying Pfizer and Moderna. So if you want Johnson & Johnson and you're not in that subgroup of people who could be at risk for the blood clot issue, well, it could be difficult to get. But I did have a mild symptomatic reaction to the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, but I did not have any reaction to the Moderna booster that I got a couple of weeks ago. So, it is what it is, but I've been exposed to it at least once over the course of the last couple of years because I'm at this point, if you haven't been exposed to it, you've either been a pure hermit living in a cave somewhere, or you've just been incredibly lucky. But even though I've been exposed to it, because I think my parents both had it in some capacity, I know my grandparents have had it, some other relatives have had it, some friends of mine have gotten it. So, people I've worked with have gotten it, and it's just, it's endemic. It's here. It's another flu. It's here to stay. It is what it is. So Canada's truckers are getting the point across. Look, it's here to stay. We're not sick. We make life happen. Stop putting chains around us. Stop locking us down. Stop holding us down. Now, in the U.S., a similar level of protest has yet to happen, and it may not happen. Now, let's say a protest similar to the Canada Freedom Convoy protest happens in the U.S. And let's also say, for the sake of argument, that protest is focused, it is direct, and it is concentrated on we are against mandates, we are against lockdowns, we are against these egregious requirements because the science is saying, the worst is over, depending on how you look at the data. The science is saying that, Omicron and subsequent variants are not going to have the same effect or the same danger levels as the initial COVID variants, Alpha and Delta or whatever, however you want to phrase them. Stop holding us down. Stop getting in our way. Stop preventing us from living our lives as free people. Now, if that's the kind of protest that happens in the U.S., then, and it remains within the boundaries of the First Amendment, meaning the right of the people to peaceably assemble and petition Congress for redress of grievances, as long as that element of the First Amendment is adhered to, there's no wanton destruction or smashing of property or, intent to cause harm to people, that is a protest that I will support. Will I participate in it? If I can, Probably. Otherwise, I will do my part by just parking my truck and not working. Now, again, as an owner-operator, I only have one truck. It's my truck, but still, one truck is a drop in the bucket. 1,000 trucks is a major issue. 10,000 trucks is a catastrophe to have those trucks not working. So, if that kind of protest did appear, did begin, did start up, I would probably seek to participate in capacity either directly or indirectly, because I believe it is time for the US of A to open back up, for lockdowns and restrictions and mandates to be lifted, and for emergency powers and authorizations and uses of authority to cease, because we have reached the point, according to science, Johns Hopkins University and the CDC have come out and said, they haven't said all clear, but they're saying, look, what we've been doing is not working. What does that say to the rest of us? It's time to stop with the garbage. It's time to stop with the overreach. It's time to stop with the lockdowns and the mandates and all this other crap. It's just time to go back to living. So that's where I stand on that. I do not support any protest that is going to seek to violate someone else's rights or liberties in terms of their person or their property. I do not support any protest that is going to seek to destroy parts of the U.S. in order to try to communicate politically. I do support protests that are going to peacefully ensure that their message is direct and focused and is transmitted to the highest possible authority through either direct political action or, as a consequence, direct inaction, meaning a cessation of business, in this case logistics, that now will begin to have an effect on local, regional, and national affairs, because inflation is already huge. There are still areas having significant troubles with supply chain difficulties, and if 1,000 or 2,000 or 6,000 trucks come off the road in protest of mandates and lockdowns, now you've got a real problem, because there's only 50,000, 60,000, 100,000 trucks in the U.S. I don't even know how many trucks there are, but you take away 5, 10, 20% of those trucks, that's a big problem. That's a lot of tonnage of freight not moving. So, anyway, I think I've rambled on long enough. I'll let you guys go. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you watched this entire thing. If you like what I'm talking about, give me a like, a share, or a subscription. I do greatly appreciate it. And I hope wherever and whenever you're at, you are